Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 105 of the DANGHEESLING podcast. Super excited to be here today, whether you're dialing in from Skokie, Illinois, Anchorage, Alaska, Leeds, UK, Colombia, Sweden, Denmark. Thank you guys for being here. And thank you for supporting the podcast, tuning in, dialing in. It's been an interesting time for the podcast. And for the first time in probably 6 months, I went and looked at some analytics to the podcast. So both for this podcast and Check the Wire. And a lot of that is because of really the decision was because we had brought on Mathis to co-host Check the Wire last week. And Mathis has really evolved a lot as an individual in terms of a content creator and how, what he does. And he went from YouTube to a little bit of Twitch to now he's essentially a full-time podcaster and has done a great job doing that. And I think since starting Check the Wire, definitely in terms of finding out how to make this show better, I would say it's definitely taken the second base seat. With Check the Wire has been such a focus in terms of, running that podcast. And this has been secondary. And it's really talking with Mathis. It's made me want to put some more sauce into both, figuring out like once really with this podcast, I love doing the journal updates, the diary updates, kind of the good and the bad. But we haven't had an interview in a while. And I don't see any interviews coming in the near future until Ryan gets back on Check the Wire. It's just a lot to manage right now, which I'm fine doing it. But I would love to bring Derek Yu on this podcast. I think would be a great fit for this podcast in terms of interviewing, and so that would be something I'm excited to do. And I feel like long-term vision of this podcast is, say there's 4. We do all the mini episodes. So there's 2 mini episodes and a full episode per week. I think ideally, the way I look at it, I'd love to have like 3 interviews per month and 1 kind of diary update. That's where my head's at with this in terms of how I'd like to play it. But it just like everything else, it takes some time. And thank you guys for sticking with me on the journey. I think at the end of the day, the goal is as long as you get some sort of value from this, whether you laugh, learn something, get distracted, that's the end of the goal. But in terms of things that's been going on lately, this past week was a big one. It was the first time we've ever dropped any merch in 8 years. And I've had some apprehension in terms of a bunch of things. One, I could say first and foremost, I had zero expectations. And I think I'm going to talk in this episode about having expectations for something and then not. So merch, I had zero expectations. I'm like, hey, look, I don't want to get overly excited about anything. I don't want to, put any goals because I just don't know. I don't know if people are going to like it. I don't know how they're going to react to it. But I can say is that I was really taken aback by, how well it did in terms of people liking it. I didn't see a ton of criticism. I saw, which I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. I like to see criticism. I know some people, some of the stuff I saw was I got some ideas via text. Some people text me at 313-241-9639 and said, hey, Dan, I'd love to see, you put this saying on the next drop or something like that. And to be honest, it went really well. And there's still time today. If you're listening to this when it comes out, the drop ends Monday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time at DANGHEESLING.shop. So, but it went really well. The first day was just really insane. And, I'm super excited that it went well because I think it's cool. It definitely, it's a way to support the channel, but I'm just really excited. Honestly, what I'm most excited about is to see people get the stuff and post it. Then it gets kind of real. Where my apprehension came with that was how much do you market it, right? Like, do I post everywhere, every day and let people know? And really what I did is the approach I took is I knew I wanted to post once on Instagram, which I haven't done yet. It's Sunday. I'm going to post probably in an hour or so on Instagram, post a couple times on Twitter, and then do a ton of active reminders during YouTube videos. Everything from putting it the number 1 link in the description to having a 15-minute pop-up in the videos to opening the video talking about the merch and ending the video. That's a lot on YouTube. So, and then on Twitch, I always put it every day. I put it in the title, and I talked about it at least once or twice during the show. I felt like that was adequate, non-intrusive, and so that's it. And to me, that's where that's where my comfortability is with it. And then I sent out one text. I've never marketed anything at all via text. It's always just talking to people, hanging out. I've never dropped any kind of link or anything like that. And so I'm like, part of me is like, hey, I don't want to flood people with this. And then part of me is like, hey, there's going to be people that on Tuesday, once it's all said and done, they're going to be like, hey, I didn't know you had merch. And ultimately, the way I feel about that is it's my fault for not letting them know. So for me, I always just walk this fine line of not spamming people at all. I'd rather err on the fact that someone doesn't know than err on the fact of spamming someone. So I sent out one text message, and it seemed, it's pretty early. I'll look at the feedback, but a lot of people's like, hey, I already bought some. Some people are like, hey, thanks for the reminder, but I haven't got anything like, oh, hey, this is not what the text platform is for, because I don't know, I'm just very, very, it's the most important thing to me is this level of respect and trust that you guys know I'm not like spamming you with affiliate deals and stuff like that. I just like to me, I just try to bring as much value as possible. And I talked to my wife a little bit about it, and she's like, just do what you feel is right. And for me, it came down to, like, I bought merch from a YouTuber that I watch maybe once a month, but whenever I watch them, like, I get a great laugh. And usually when I watch them, it's because I really need a good laugh. And and that's someone who I don't even really watch once a month. I don't even watch a ton of content creators, but I just wanted to do something to support them. And so sometimes, like, I feel like, not there's this fallacy, but there was something I learned in a mass media class. I mean, this is back in the early 2000s, that there's this theory that, I think it's something like this won't, there's a theory that people think something won't affect them. I don't remember what it was, but it actually does. And I guess I forget what my point was with that, but I just wanted to make sure people knew about it. And so my thing was like, hey, look, if I feel this way about this content creator I barely watch, and I didn't mind seeing, his links and stuff everywhere, I would imagine like other people kind of feel the same way. And sometimes you feel like, oh, just because I feel this way doesn't mean other people do, but most of the time they do, when it's stuff like that. So I just tried to look at it like, hey, look, I haven't sold or done anything in 8 years. I'm going to do what I feel is comfortable. And if it's a little uncomfortable, just maybe try it and then kind of play from there. So I feel pretty good about how it was marketed. I don't think anyone felt spammed by it, which is the most important thing. But it went really well. And I don't think there's any plans right now to do merch anytime in the near future, but maybe like an annual thing, like once a year, maybe once every other year. But I'm just excited and want to see how the rest of the process goes. In terms of things that didn't go well with the merch drop, or things that we had to adjust, I mean, I guess it was a good problem to have. We sold out of mugs on the first day, which was crazy. So I think we restocked once or twice, and I think next time, I don't necessarily like restocking in terms of, like, I'd rather say, hey, there's X amount and then that's it. But at the same time, I got to a point where I'm like, hey, look, a lot of people want these. So I didn't want it to be like a PS5 thing, right? Where people who wanted it couldn't get it. So I don't have the right answer on that. The other thing, the one thing that I don't have an answer for, and maybe we go a totally different route next time, was that, international, people really, it's really a tough go because, just the shipping from the US to overseas is really tough. But there's just no real answer to it right now. While still maintaining the quality of everything that we wanted to do. Everything's, custom and maybe as things progress, we try something new to make it more accessible. But I'd say that's kind of the biggest thing that I was, you kind of, nothing can be perfect. And I think that was where things fell a little short, but we also knew that going into it, at least for this one. But then that was really good. I was really happy about it. I checked in with Jay a lot. I'm like, hey, is this going well? I was like, yeah, it's going really well. But I don't know, I don't have zero experience doing anything with merch like that. So it was kind of I think a really nice surprise from the expectation standpoint of things. Outside of that, in terms of having some expectations that were not met. And I don't know what my expectations were, but we finally finished up Sekiro, which was kind of like the last game in the big quintilogy on Twitch. And when we do something like that, I guess it's now the second one we've ever done, but I put together a lore video, a video about the character, everything from having an animation done to having voice actors, which on this one we had the entire returning cast, which was amazing. Maggie Crone, Eddie, the narrator, everyone came back, and then I'm like, okay, how do we even one up that? So I brought in two guests. I brought in Mathis to voice a character in the Happy Hob, which was really cool. They both did a great job. But that, you write the script, you do all this stuff, you work with the animator back and forth, and then, I I do the post production, I add music, and then work on, I do like the titles and the end credits and stuff like that. So, you put all this time into it. And I don't know, I think maybe because the reaction on the first video was just completely out of control. Like it was just an explosion. I think I had a similar expectations, which I normally don't. I normally go into things like, oh, I just hope people like it. This one, I don't know if I had like the same expectations that it was going to have that kind of response too. And it's not that it didn't. But for some reason I walked away. I'm like, oh man, it didn't feel like how I thought it would in terms of the reaction. And I don't know. I don't know why. I don't know if it's because of the game or how long it took, but it was just kind of one of those things. I think my expectations were misaligned, which is like 99% of the time why I go into something without expectations, because then it just, whatever happens and you keep moving it forward. But I think at the end of the day, what it does do is it shows people that, we're willing to do something different and kind of move the needle in the production value. And I enjoy it. I enjoy it. There's just a ton of work, and even, money and resources that goes into those. But at the same time, I love doing it because I believe the community likes it. And it's just another way to kind of differentiate what we do, on Twitch and on YouTube. And so, and I think that's cool. And I think it all plays a part. Like the whole thing is like, I like going that extra distance. So even though maybe the reaction isn't what I built up in my mind, it doesn't affect, the enjoyment or what I think it really does, which is gives people something to be excited about and more entertainment at the end of the day. So that was cool. And I was really happy to finish Sekiro in terms of, I just feel like, I don't want to say the show's stale, that's not it, but ready to move the needle on a new game and, really focus on Tarkov and something else. And what the something else is, I know it's going to be a horror game. And then, probably something, I may have talked about this before, it's probably going to be something out of left field, something a little bit different for the new secondary game. Just because we've done a lot of Souls, and, Sekiro, I feel like Sekiro took like 3 months. But just ready to do and try something different, something like, I think back to Undertale, or I think back to Bennett Foddy. Those were all very, very, very different game choices that worked out well. And so I'm thinking about going along those lines again, just to see how things move from there. So outside of that, this past week, there was an internal mistake in terms of, on the team, and I'm not going to say who, what, or why, but essentially, right now, the most important thing on YouTube is posting Spelunky daily videos, both at 8 a.m. and 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And the reason being is that it's by far the best viewed series we've ever done, meaning that, the views are just consistently really, really good. They haven't really tapered off. They're doing really well. And part of that is some unknown algorithm in my head. And I don't know if it's true or not, but it's just what I believe to be true, is that when you post something the same time, same thing every single day, it's good. And I think the more days you do in a row, for whatever odd reason, the algorithm benefits you. But at minimum, you're running a TV station and people know, hey, look, at 8 a.m. Spelunky's supposed to be there. So last week, it was, I think, like 8:30. I'm like, let me just double check and make sure the 8 a.m. Spelunky went live, and it didn't. And ultimately, it's on me because I didn't double check it, but I have someone responsible for that I pay. And, it's really, I was like, I got this weird feeling in like my stomach and heart. I'm like, oh, this is like the worst case scenario, within reason, right? Like in terms of life, it's not, but in terms of what we're trying to accomplish, it's not a good thing. And so I hurry up and made it manually. I made it manually live by 9 a.m. But I don't know the effect of that. I don't know, if it disappointed people. I don't know if it had an effect on the algorithm. I just know it's not good. And so, but at that moment, it's already done. And so the person that was in charge of that, I just said, hey, look, like this can't happen. But publicly, I said, hey, look, it's my fault, because ultimately it is. I would never blame someone that's on the team for something that didn't go right, even if it's their job or not. Ultimately, it's my channel. I'm also everything. Kind of the buck stops with me, and that way, the individual knew, hey, look, I know they take it a little bit more serious now. Not that they did, but I understand that mistakes happen. It's not it's not brain surgery, like, but it's important. But at the same time, it's kind of like the saying that I always think about is that nothing is ever as good as it seems, and nothing is ever as bad as it seems. So yeah, was that a good thing to happen? No. Is it the end of the world? No. Is it probably going to take another 30 days to get whatever YouTube algorithm juice back? Yeah. Am I willing to do it? Of course. Would it be better if that didn't happen? Yeah, but the reality of it's the situation it is. And I think anytime you're in a situation like that, at least when you're, in charge, or, you have a team that, people look to, if you're blaming other people, there's no way that person is ever going to want to really work with you. And that's kind of how I feel about it, is that I would never blame that person. I want to make sure that the mistake gets corrected. But at the same time, I don't expect people to be perfect, because I'm not perfect in my own right. So, whether, you're in charge of a team, a classroom, something like that, that's something I always just keep in mind, is that ultimately, if something goes wrong, it's your fault. That's it. It's not your employee's fault. You can always do something better. And I feel like it just makes life, ironically enough, a little bit easier when you take responsibility for everything. And I know it's hard. Sometimes it's hard to fathom or hard to hear, like, oh, that's not fair. But it is, because ultimately you hired that person, and you may or may not have provided them all the resources they need, or, so just, I don't know. It just makes things easier. It makes everything easier to digest when you do that. So that was something that, was a challenge. But in terms of things going on YouTube, they've been phenomenal. And we got a bunch of, it's just been really good. And it's kind of one of those things where I had an idea that to set things up this way, right? Like, I started playing Spelunky 1 on YouTube 150 days ago. And for context, those were getting about like 1,000 to 1,500 views per episode. I'm like, okay, hey, look, I really like this game. The chance to explore a game that we really like, with the potential, not guaranteed, the potential of a new wave coming in with Spelunky 2. I don't know if it's going to work. I don't know if people are going to enjoy watching it, but you guys know the story of Spelunky 1. It held, between 1,000 and 1,600. Really, it probably did closer to 2,000 before we beat the game. And then, so then Spelunky 2 hit. And now, like, I'm just looking at, here's the past handful of week videos. So 5,300 views, 5,500 views, 3,500 views, 3,100 views, 6,200 views, 3,100 views, 3,500 views, 2,900 views, 1,700 views over 5 hours. These are really, really disproportionate good numbers for the channel. So it's been great. And I just want to keep that momentum rolling. And it's kind of one of those things where I don't want to say you can predict a wave, because I couldn't. Like, these Spelunky 2 videos could have not done well, but it went well. So now it's kind of the point where I'm doubling down on that. And there's some L's too. We did an edited raid video, Escape from Tarkov raid video. It's really well done, put together, edited, and it did 1,300 views. So it's just continuing to do that. And just for context too, in terms, since we're talking numbers, the lore video we put together, which costs money and ton of time and effort, that got 2,700 views. So just to show like how well the Spelunky stuff is doing, that's kind of, it's disproportionately doing really well, which is good. But that being said, I do want to, I put out a tweet here taking some questions for towards the end of this podcast. And I'm gonna start doing that every episode on a different platform. So this week I'll do Twitter. Maybe next week we do Instagram. But let's get to it. So Hexagod, aka Digital Swan on Twitter, says, on a scale, is good wood better than good eats? Good eats is like picking up something good. Good wood is performing really good. So I think that hopefully that provides some context for you. Beardy Bake says, would you rather fight 100 duck-sized horses or one horse-sized duck? 100 duck-sized horses. Connor Nelson says, first impressions on a merch drop. I think it went really well, and I'm really excited about it. And really, I guess the answer to that would be blown away. Just really surprised by that. JD Babes 4732 on Twitter says, where do you City see yourself in 5 City years? Hopefully doing the same thing, at least professionally. Moving the needle on Twitch and YouTube and whatever unique platform is there at the time, whether it's TikTok or whatever, drop, whatever it is. Just being able to do this, on a day-to-day basis is really, the end goal. So kind of the end goal is kind of where we are now, just being able to physically, to be able to continue to do this, run a show 5 days a week, put up 2 videos a day. And, that's it. It's really not too much different than it looks right now. This is from B-Tie B-Suit said, would I ever attempt Big Brother again, US or Canada? Survey says most likely not. So thank you guys for dialing in, and thank you for the questions. Oh, I just refreshed it. There's a bunch more. All right, this next one is from Mo Was Taken on Twitter. It says, what should your goals be as a content creator? What metric do you use to determine success? So micro success is, hey, how is this series doing? How is this show doing? AKA, what's the feedback like? How are the view numbers? That's like very, very micro. I don't focus too much on that, but I'd say on a weekly, monthly basis, I'll look at that stuff. On a macro level, I'm just like, okay, every show, make it a little bit better. Every video, make it a little bit better. What are you doing creatively? Meaning, what are you doing super different or outside of the box that you've never tried on the channel? Are you doing things different? Are you trying some weird stuff, or stuff that your audience may have never seen? That's kind of how I judge it. And then over time, you like to see, I don't want to see peaks and valleys. What I would love to see is like a slow, steady uptick. Doesn't have to explode overnight, but I think as long as you're maintaining and not losing, as a whole, you're going to be okay. There's moments where, Twitch subscribers go down and things like that, but as long as you're able to stay the course, and I think most importantly, as long as you still enjoy it, everything else kind of follows from there. And he's got some interesting questions. Says, what makes you go, okay, now I'll release merch, or now time to do a giveaway? I think for me, the merch stuff was, a lot of people were asking about it, and I knew Jay was working on stuff. I knew I had someone in mind. I'm like, hey, look, my capacity to do this is very slim, but I know I'm friends with someone who's really good at it, and I think it would be a good partnership. Next question is from Jedi Awesome. Jared Krager on Twitter says, I live in Michigan. I was wondering what's your favorite thing about pure Michigan? My favorite thing about living in Michigan is the fall. It's just good wood, man. Bonfires. You got your hoodie on. You got a little cidericity. It's nice out. You got a little crispness in the air. I don't know. I just really love the fall. Tim Mix on Twitter said, if you have to start from zero tomorrow while retaining your current knowledge, how long do you think it would take back to get to your current level? Would it take faster, slower, or the same place? With the same knowledge, I think that's a very unfair question, but in a good way, meaning that with the same knowledge what I had now, I think I could get there faster. Instead of 8 years, it would probably take me 5 years, though. It's not like it would take 8 months. I think it would take probably 3 less years. I think that's probably fair. So, but I guess, if you're looking for advice, is whatever. If you're looking to grow on Twitch, if you're on Twitch, you're going to need to collaborate with people. And the way to do it not on Twitch is to go on other platforms and have people come to your Twitch by putting out good content in other places. Daniel Hink on Twitter said, how's the merch going? What did you learn from Ryan and what did you change up? From Ryan, I think the big thing I learned is that to trust Jay. Not that I didn't trust Jay before, but the fact that Ryan was like, hey, look, I trusted Jay to do everything from like beginning to end. And I'm the type person where I like to put input in. So I probably was like 95%, where I'm like, hey, let's do mugs. That was like, I'll take credit. The mugs were my idea because I thought people would like it. And that went really well. So in terms of what I changed up, that was a big thing was, doing the mugs. The other thing I think Jay asked if I wanted to do a zip up. I said no. And I think that was a mistake. I think people wanted a zip up. The other thing I changed up the dad hat. It's like a higher quality or different quality material than the current, than the typical dad hat. I really liked it. It fits really well. Other thing that was changed up. What else did we change up? I think that's it. And I think maybe when, Jay's like, well, let's do Saturday to Saturday. I'm like, nah, let's do Monday to Monday. Those are some little like behind the scenes stuff, but for the most part, it was, all Jay. And then I think I'm trying to think, those are probably the biggest changes. But it was pretty smooth for the most part and went really good. I was really happy with Glass Embroidery, got involved in terms of like they jumped into some of my Twitter messaging to answer questions, which I really appreciate because they handle, if there's any problems with the merch, you go to them, but ultimately, I'm going to get, if someone's unhappy, I'm going to get involved too, but they're the one that handles the fulfillment. Jake Cos on Twitter said, how did the merch drop go? Do you think you'll ever include another limited item if you do merch again? 100%. I think, and there's no plans in the future, but next time I do something else, whether it's another like mug or something, I like the fact that, we did something a little different with that. And I'm sure I'd be surprised in any future drops if Jay doesn't push to include that, because I think it's sold. Well, I think he was surprised by it. LULK on Twitter says, do you think the benefits of social media as a streamer outweigh the negatives? To me, there really are no negatives. I mean, you got to deal with some stuff, but it's a no-brainer. To me, but I will say this. I would not be on social media. I wouldn't be on Instagram. I wouldn't be on Twitter. If there wasn't a reason for it for the show, meaning like I don't necessarily like enjoy social media in that regard. It's more of like a necessity, if that makes sense. So if I didn't see it as like a, as a way to help the show, or like as really not even a way to help the show, like if you're not there, you got no shot. I wouldn't do it just 'cause I'm more of a private type person in that regards. Ty Demron on Twitter says, have you seen an increase in viewers and subscribers since Spelunky 2 dropped? If so, do you try and ride that wave or stick to the tried and true Dan format? Well, I guess I would have to ask you, what is the tried and I'm going to ask you, what is the tried and true Dan format? But yeah, no, there's definitely been a wave, and I haven't even talked about YouTube subscribers. It's been going really fast, so much so that I'm behind the 8 ball a little bit in terms of we crossed the 85,000 subscriber goal, which is 5 Nights at Freddy's, which I need to record, and then we also crossed the 86,000, which is the second part reaction to the Danglish video. So those are 2 things I got to catch up on. It's been going really, 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 really well there. So I'm just kind of not even, and it's funny because I don't even like focus on that stuff. I'm just continuing to just make as many videos as possible. And one of the things I had to do just to, I think, be able to do this on long term is I do 7 Spelunky 8 a.m. videos per week. So 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, there's a Spelunky 2 video. And then Monday through Friday, I do the daily challenge. And those videos I think do better just because people can watch them and compete as well. But I also know I can't always record on Saturday or Sunday or necessarily want to. So I just kind of set the expectations right off the start that Monday through Friday is the dailies. Would it be way better to do 7 days a week? Yeah. But at what cost, right? Like, so the weekends I get to kind of recharge. There's definitely a day where I do 0 work and I don't worry about having to do that Spelunky video, would things maybe move the needle a little bit more if I did it 7 days? But yeah, but to me, that's kind of one of the things where I'm like, okay, hey, I'm willing to not do that, to maybe recharge the batteries and have a little bit of like an actual day off. And so far it's gone well. And I know on Mondays, like, I am jacked up to do the daily video. Like, I can't wait. Not that I'm not with the other videos, but it's just different when you take like just a half day off or a day off. It makes a big difference. So that's been going really well. With that being said, thank you guys so much for all the questions. I'm gonna try to do more of that, especially at the end of these journal diary type episodes. If you guys enjoyed the episode, share it with someone. You're like, oh yeah, I think, you're in content creation, you'll probably get something out of this, or you may learn something I really enjoyed. That's a great way to support the podcast, or rate it on iTunes or whatever platform you listen on. Thumbs up. It helps out so much. I want to thank you guys for all the support. If you did buy merch, if you didn't, doesn't matter. I just want to thank you guys for all the support and hope you guys enjoyed it. With that being said, I will see you guys next Monday for another show, and see what we got for you next week. Thank you guys so much for listening or watching, and I'll see you guys next time.